Hello and welcome to this part of Diploma in TEFL. This module concentrates on reading. Many people argue that can we teach reading? Well, in this section, we're going to give you techniques and ideas of how to help learners become confident and successful readers. There's many problems they will face. Firstly, the alphabet. Many people have different alphabets to us. The way we read left to right, where some read right to left, and we read top to bottom, where they read bottom to top. So we must take this into consideration. Another aspect is the vocabulary. They're going to come across vocabulary that they haven't seen before, they haven't heard before. So we must consider this when we're choosing the text we ask them to read. Here at Frisby's, we advocate the idea of creating your own dictionary. So they start the course with a blank book and they build on it. Our simple rule is what you see, what you hear is what you learn. So we spoke earlier about word families, and this is how it can work in the dictionary. They find a word like beauty, which is a noun, beautiful, the adjective, beautifully, the adverb, and to beautify, the verb. So that's a way we can build up, and it will give them the opportunity later to use different structures. We also think about recognising collocations and phrasal verbs. Chunking, which comes in, which we spoke about earlier, and that's the lexical approach that will help you with this. A technique that many people use is reading out loud. This is fine. It's the step between reading and speaking. It helps sometimes to give the students confidence to speak. But however, we must remember that what are we testing for here? Because when they read out loud, they don't comprehend what is being said, what is being read. Also, they concentrate on different aspects of the language, for example, pronunciation, spelling, and grammar. So we must consider that when we're choosing the piece to read, which we'll come to shortly. We have to consider the purposes of reading. Is it for pleasure? Evaluate critically? Understanding? A textbook, for example, which they do in the classroom. So we have to think of the purpose, explain to them the different reasons why they are reading. People say there are many different reasons why we read, and here's just a few of them. To develop verbal abilities, use more varied vocabulary, which is true. When they're reading, they'll come across vocabulary they don't hear in everyday language. So this gives the difference between formal and informal. It improves focus and concentration. Readers, people that read regularly, normally, so it is said, enjoy the arts, museums, going to the theatre. Improves the imagination, which is good. I mean, when they take exams, quite often they're asked to write about something. And the imagination comes in very helpful there. They say it's to make you more smart, to make you smarter, more intelligent, and makes you more interesting and attractive. So this is a good way we can get them to read. Tell them you're going to be more attractive if you read more. It reduces stress. So perhaps it's the teachers that should be reading. And it improves your memory. It can also be argued it's very difficult to test reading skills, because with reading skills, we don't hear them as we do or see them when they're writing. Much more difficult to assess. That is why we must monitor what they're reading. We'll come to a bit more about that shortly. The idea of it is to ask them, give them exercises they can do to see if they understood what is being said. And That will help us with our testing, our evaluating of the situation. For example, you can give them a recipe and ask them how they would make the cake. Obviously, we don't all have the equipment for them to make cakes, but what you can do is get things like Lego and get directions on how to create something. And that way you can see if they're understanding it, if they understand what is being said and what they're reading. People use repeated reading so they recognize words, which is good in its own way. But sometimes it can become boring if they're reading the same text. So think about, here are some ideas that will help you and help the learners with their reading. Surveying. So they look at the whole picture to understand what it's about. We say this with Frisbees. When we read something, when we watch something, when we listen to something, we give them the background information to this. So what are they going to read about? We use their prediction skills and their schema. So they start thinking about it and they're ready for what they're going to read. I always say to my students, before you read, before you watch a film or before you listen to something, get the synopsis of it. Get the synopsis of the story. Look at the main characters. This will help you follow it. Many students, what they do is they watch a film and they say, I didn't understand it. Of course, you're not going to understand it straight away. What you need is to work at it. Watch it a few times. Stop the film. Stop the reading passages and say, what's happened so far? Make the student work at it. This is the key to becoming a successful reader, even listener. We also talk about skimming, where the student goes through very quickly, he reads it to get the gist of what the story is about. And also, these are great skills for when they take exams like the IELTS, Cambridge Certificate, TEFL. They will need that. Whereas scanning is another one, which is very, very important when they're looking for certain information. In exams, they don't have time to keep reading the text, looking at the question, going back to the text. So with the prediction skills, it helps with the scanning skills. So when we say when, we're looking for time. We're looking for a date. Where, we're looking for a place. Get the students to understand that, and that will help with the scanning skills. Paraphrasing is another good way of testing if the students have taken in what they've read. So what we would do, if you read the paragraph, then start what has been said. What's it about? They can look at titles. They will get an idea from that. So we follow that and help them to create this idea of working at the text rather than just reading. We also talk about the tops down. The tops down is where we use our schema, our intelligence and our experience to look at what we're reading. We can compare it with different situations, personal experiences. Whereas the bottoms up is where students, and many students do this when they first start, is looking at it critically, each word by word, punctuation, spelling, grammar, word order. So be aware of the difference there. When evaluating, when testing, think of what you are testing for, what you want from the student. We said this all the way through with the writing, everything, with the speaking. Let the students know it's their lesson. Encourage them. At Frisby's, we create activities to help you with pre-reading, while reading and post-reading exercises. Much of the success of the reader depends on the teacher, and we've got some ideas that will help you. So as teachers, we should always encourage our students, before they start reading, aloud or whatever, get them to skim. Go through, find out the gist, what it's about, who wrote it, what's the audience, things like this. Get them to question it. Look at the titles. What ideas can they get from the titles? What does each paragraph deal with? So that's the first step, and we make sure they always do this. We don't take it for granted. We must also remember a student is not expected to recall the whole story. It's a communicative idea, and we must build on that. It's success rate. So we offer them success. We praise them at the right time for what they've achieved. As with everything with Frisbees, we always explain to the students what the activity is about, what is expected from them, what information they're looking for, what words are they looking for. For example, we quite often give them a text, we read it, and then we say, we'd like you to underline all the conjunctions or underline the different words you don't understand. Talk about it. See if you can guess them from the context of what. Most importantly, as teachers, we don't need to translate every word from them. We can ask their peers if they can help. What we're trying to do is to stop them becoming bottoms-up readers to tops-down readers, so they can use their experience, their intelligence, their experiences to overcome any problems they may have. This has been a quick overview of this module. In the course, it goes into much more detail, and it gives you assignments to explore what you have read. The most important thing, I believe, and Frisby's educational beliefs, is this: make it enjoyable. Give the students what they want. At first, it's no good giving them text they're not interested in. If you give them something that they're interested in, they're more likely to read. At the beginning of this course, when we talk about teaching, we say, get to know your students. They're individuals, they're not numbers. You know that as well as I do. Some will like horses, some will like Harry Potter, some will like all different kinds of things, different sports, different hobbies. Get to know them and get them to read about what they like. At first, all reading is good reading, and then you can gradually build up to the text they need to learn for exams and things like this, and for the workplace. So I hope you found this interesting. You can always email me with any questions you may have. It'll be a pleasure to hear from you. All the best. Bye.